caled dros ben, dros y 5 mlynedd diwethaf, I bobl sydd yn frwdfrydig dros yr Undeb Ewropeaidd. Does the translation work? Yeah. You can hear something, doesn't matter, it's not what's listening. It's quite emotional, isn't it? Being here, I think, after 5 years, you think about what we've all been through and how we all felt when the results of that referendum came in. I thought I'd start today by reading a quote of what I said to a Welsh newspaper a few days before the Brexit referendum. We're failing to make the emotional connection that we need to make in the Brexit discussion. And that's where the challenge is for us now. Now, yesterday, I spent the day in Ebbw Vale, in Tredegar, and in Blackwood. And everywhere I went, I saw signs of the massive contribution that the EU funds had made to those communities. Brand new college, new railway track, community buildings, training courses paid for by the European Social Fund. But 5 years ago, we failed to make that emotional connection between the EU and the people who lived in those communities. And that's one of the many reasons that today we're discussing the subject of Brexit 5 years on. And I think there's a lesson for us here in terms of the need to bring communities with us. A lesson that we must heed, not just in terms of the EU debate, but in terms of domestic challenges and divisions we're facing in our communities today, including the rise of the Reform Party. Now, as policymakers and as leaders, we need to make sure that we make an emotional connection and to demonstrate the relevance of what we're doing to the people we represent. I don't think it's any secret to any of you to understand how I felt when those referendum results came in. I suspect my reaction could be heard all the way to Brussels. But I think what matters now isn't how any of us voted back then, it's about what we've done since to find the best way forward for Wales. I think it's almost surreal to think back to that time. I think it represented a moment of profound change to our nation, with different visions of Wales and our future came, I think, into sharp focus. Many of our citizens who voted to leave the EU were driven by genuine concerns about our public services, democratic control, and economic fairness. They voted for what they genuinely believed would be a better path forward. I think it's fair to say that the campaign period saw complex claims and counterclaims that made it really challenging for voters to navigate the real implications of their choice. Many were moved by promises of additional funding for our NHS and public services. And we all remember that bus, don't we? 350 million a week for the NHS if we left the EU. It was clear that many felt their voices weren't being heard by distant institutions. And when the results came in, I think it marked not just a political decision, but a moment that revealed deep divisions in our society. And I think we all got to work to heal those divisions. It showed us that different communities across Wales had varying experiences of that European membership. And those perspectives, I think, deserve our understanding and our respect. I remember on the day of the referendum, I've been out all day, it's been pretty miserable if I'm honest, and I remember just calling in at a shop late at night and asking the guy behind the desk, which way did you vote? And he said, no, I voted for Brexit. And I just said, why the hell did you do that? And he said, it's not going to make any difference to me, it hasn't touched my life. And I just started thinking through some of the messages we were giving, some of the, freedom of movement, mobile phone coverage. He wasn't going to do any of that stuff. And I just realised that actually that connection, that emotional connection, we we needed to have worked harder on that. So the formal departure from the EU 5 years ago on the basis of a hard Brexit, negotiated by Boris Johnson, I think it wasn't just a procedural change, it was a moment that required us all to think very deeply about our future path as a nation. And I think here's the crucial thing. Regardless of how anyone voted, we all still, I hope, share common aspirations for Wales's prosperity and for our well-being. Wales is and always will be a European nation, not just geographically, but through our shared values, through our shared culture, through our centuries of interconnected history. And as a former MEP, I spent countless hours, 15 years in European corridors, forging partnerships, building relationships and championing Wales. Our European neighbours didn't just respect us, they admired us. And I think that respect still exists today. And I'm determined to ensure that Wales will continue to be a trusted and valued partner in Europe and beyond. I think these past 5 years have been a whirlwind and a crucible of challenges. We've had Brexit, we've had a global pandemic, we've had war in Europe and high inflation. And yet, amidst all the upheaval, Wales has remained steadfast in our commitment to working with our European friends and partners. Why? Because the fact is the big challenges we face, as Anthony suggested, climate change, inequality, economic uncertainty, they don't stop at borders. They command, they demand cooperation, not isolation. And we have big challenges to face, in particular in the face of Brexit. Just take trade. Between 2019 and 2023, the volume of Welsh goods exported to the EU fell by 8%. In the same period, Welsh food and drink exports reduced by 17%. Seafood exports dropped by a massive 75%. And let's not forget that since 2019-20, there's been a 66% drop in EU entrance to Welsh universities. And we know the impact that that is having on our higher education institutions, not least here in Cardiff. And that relationship with the EU is even more important to Wales than it is to England, because whilst almost 50% of England's goods in exports go to the EU, 60% of ours go to the EU. And that's before we look at the impact on our society of all those citizens who previously made valuable contributions to our communities. Many of those went home. I previously had an Eastern European dentist. And lots of people have been complaining about not being able to get a dentist. We had lots of Eastern European dentists before they went home. We know that around 2,000 EU care workers went home, leading to fragility in our care sector, having a knock-on effect on the NHS. The construction sector remains challenged, and pubs in West Wales can't find staff to operate them at the peak of the tourist season. And one of the things I did when I entered the Senedd, weeks after the Brexit vote, was to initiate a campaign called Diolch Doc, urging the Welsh public to make sure that our EU NHS workers felt welcome and to try and avoid a catastrophic exodus from our services. So, to all those who stayed in Wales from the EU, I want to thank you for your contribution that you're making to our nation, to our workforce, to our NHS, to our hospitality sector, and to our ability to build new infrastructure. And the great irony, of course, in all of this is that whilst the Brexiteers promised that leaving the EU would curb migration. We've seen a rise of 70,000 people coming to Wales from around the globe since the ending of the free movement of people. Many of these people, we are depending on them to bring our waiting list down, to contribute excellence to our academic institutions, and for business development, and to look after our elderly. Many of these are coming now from outside the EU rather than within. But I think we've got to remember that despite Brexit, the EU is still Wales's biggest trading partner and the largest source of inward investment. It's why we've kept our team in Brussels, a small but mighty group that ensures Wales's voice is heard loud and clear across Europe. That's why we appointed Derek Vaughan, a former MEP, as our Welsh Government representative on Europe. Derek just hasn't been our man on the ground, he's been a champion for Wales, opening doors, making connections, and reminding Europe that we're still very much in the game. But we're not simply maintaining existing connections, we're reimagining our economic potential. Our innovation strategy is transforming how a small nation can compete and collaborate in a post-Brexit world. When traditional political structures seem to be closing doors, we are opening new windows of opportunities. Consider our advanced manufacturing sector, the compound semiconductors cluster in South Wales. That's becoming a global technology hub, attracting international investment. Companies from across Europe are looking to Wales, not as a peripheral region, but as a centre of technological expertise. Our universities are no longer just educational institutions, they're innovation engines. The collaboration between Cardiff University's research facilities, Newport's Technology Park, and international tech partners is creating ecosystems of innovations that transcend national boundaries. Despite Brexit's challenges, Welsh tech startups are attracting venture capital from across Europe. Our coding academies and digital skills programs are ensuring that our young people are not just prepared for the future, they're actively creating it. From fintech in Cardiff to aerospace in North Wales, we're proving that Wales is a nation of creators, not just consumers outside of the EU. And we're doing this with a distinctly Welsh approach, collaborative, sustainable, community-focused. Our economic strategy isn't just about competition, it's about connection. We're showing that economic innovation is more than about just numbers. It's about people, it's about potential, and a vision that extends far beyond any single political moment. Our shining example, I think, of our determination to stay connected is the TIPE programme, our very own Welsh youth mobility scheme. And that has meant that thousands of learners have had the chance to experience the world, to grow, to dream bigger. It's worth hearing about the story, I think, from the pupils at Canolfan Addysg Conwy. It's a referral unit for children who faced trauma, who participated in the TIPE programme. This might have been the Erasmus programme in a previous life. They visited Finland last year, and for many it was the first time that they'd left Wales, and the experience changed their lives. It transformed their understanding of possibility. And the programme continues to be referenced by senior EU officials as an example of cooperation that goes beyond borders, goes beyond the EU. It's a testament, I think, to the resilience of our nation and a reminder that our commitment to our young people and our future remains strong. I want to be clear, we are not stopping here. I want Welsh young people to have the same opportunities as any young person in Europe. I want businesses to have access to the best talent. I want artists to tour freely. I want workers' qualifications to be recognised across borders. These aren't just luxuries, they're essentials if Wales is to flourish in the 21st century. And to our young people, I want to be absolutely clear, your horizons are not limited. We are creating pathways, building bridges, ensuring that your generations will be more connected, not less. We're developing language immersion programs, digital exchange platforms, and international work placement schemes that are going to ensure that whilst young people remain EU and global citizens. But here's the good news. We're not powerless. Through the structures of the trade and cooperation agreement, through our partnerships and through sheer determination, Wales is proving that we can still influence, we can still innovate, we can still lead. We're an outward-looking European nation and will continue to engage with our European neighbours. The future remains in our hands and we're going to continue to build bridges, not walls. Even if we wanted to rejoin the EU and the single market, the chances are that the EU probably wouldn't have us at this point in time. I think we've certainly got to strive for a closer relationship than the one we currently have. In 2023, we hosted the CPMR Atlantic Art Commission General Assembly, and it was the first time this prestigious event has ever been held in the UK post-Brexit. Ministers and senior officials from across Europe gathered here in Wales. Why? Because they see us as a credible, collaborative partner. These connections are vital to our shared fight against the challenges of things like climate change. And through agreements with regions like Brittany, Flanders, the Basque Country, Baden-Württemberg, we're tackling shared challenges like the climate crisis together. We have a very close partnership agreement with our nearest neighbours in Ireland. I'm delighted to see Denise here with us today. That's a really valuable interlocutor when it comes to our EU relationship. These partnerships aren't just about trade or policy, they're also about our values. And one area where Wales is leading the way is on sustainability. Our Wellbeing of Future Generations Act has captured the imagination of policymakers across Europe. We're the first nation in the world to have taken the UN sustainability goals and to transpose them into law. But it's not just law, it's a mindset, it's a commitment to leave the world a better place for those who come after us. And you know what, in return, we're learning from our European partners, and it's interesting to see that the EU has recently appointed effectively a new generations, a future generations commissioner as well. But 5 years on from Brexit, I think there's a lot to reflect on. But one thing gives me hope, and I think that's the undeniable fact that Europe hasn't turned its back on Wales. They still believe in us, and we still believe in them. We're proving that international cooperation is not just about achieving a certain legal status. It's a lived experience. It's about shared values, mutual respect, and learning from different countries, regions, and people. So my challenge to everyone here today is, let's seize the opportunities we have. Let's push for that reset in the UK-EU relationship with the UK Labour government in Westminster. Let's demand better for our young people, our businesses and our communities. Let's forge a closer relationship than the one we have at the moment. 5 years on, I think there's a lot to reflect on, and that's what gives me hope. It's how we've all adapted to forge new pathways forward. Our European neighbours, they remain our friends, they remain our partners, while here at home we're finding innovative ways to work together across different perspectives and different priorities. We're demonstrating that meaningful international cooperation isn't just about formal agreements, It's about the countless daily connections between people, businesses and communities. It's about finding practical solutions to shared challenges, whether that's tackling climate change, growing our economy, or creating opportunities for young people. So my challenge to everyone here today is this. Let's focus on the practical opportunities ahead. Let's work constructively with all our partners, both within the UK and across Europe, to build relationships that benefit everyone in Wales. And let's ensure that we look to the future. The past 5 years have not always been easy, but I think they've shown Wales's remarkable resilience and adaptability through programmes like TIDE, through our sustainable initiatives, through our regional partnerships. I think we've proven that Wales can forge its own positive path forward whilst respecting different views about the future. And when people ask me what's changed in 5 years, I tell them this. Wales has shown that we can be proud of our distinct identity and our openness to be working with others, whether it's our farmers finding new markets, our manufacturers adapting to new circumstances, or our young people seeing fresh circumstances and opportunities. I'm confident the discussions ahead of you today will be lively and they're important. And I want to thank Anthony Snorter, Charles Smith and the Wales for Europe group. Thank you for flying the flag, for continuing to fly the flag, and for organising this vital event. People I know have worked tirelessly to keep that spirit of Europe alive. I also want to thank Geraint Alphon-Davies and Calvin Turner for the leadership you've shown over those 5 years. Wales, I hope, is showing what it means to be a confident, outward-looking nation that values all perspectives whilst building bridges with our neighbours near and far. We're not just adapting to change, we're shaping our future. I think, though, it's important that we make that emotional connection and demonstrate the relevance of our work to the public in Wales in all our efforts. That is going to be central to our success in the future. Diolch yn fawr.